Hello, this is podcast number 2 for a small contractor in a small town. This podcast is going to be about estimating for a small contractor. It's pretty much the heart of your business. You can't be a contractor if you can't estimate. It's either going to make or break you. You've got bad estimates, it's going to put you out of business. And it all starts with an estimate. Just about any time you go talk to somebody about a project, one of the first things they say is how much. Generally, you probably wouldn't resist spitting out a number because once you put a number in somebody's head, that's what they remember. They say, well, you said it's this. So more or less, it's best to just say, well, I'm going to go back. After I review everything, I'll sit down and prepare an estimate. Try to resist just giving them any kind of a number there because you'll end up being held to it and you can be way off once you sit down and consider everything. So what are some of the basics of estimating and making sure that you get it right? Because everything's going to be dependent on that, whether you end up succeeding as a contractor and making money and supporting your family or yourself is how well you're going to estimate if you're a contractor. There's different kinds of estimates. The most common would be something called a lump sum. Just, hey, how much is everything? Material, labor, all in, all the taxes, delivery charges, whatever. What's the lump sum amount? That's probably, as a small contractor, one of the major things you're going to get is a lump sum. And if you're bidding against other contractors, that's what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, what's your price versus his price? And what's in a lump sum can be several items to several dozen items to hundreds of items. It all depends on the project, the complexity, and how big it is. The other kind of estimating form is something that's going to be called a cost plus. That is where you work out with an owner, say, look, here's all the cost, here's what the doors are, the painting is, the hardware, the roofing, the windows. These things are all going to cost this. You pay all that, and you pay the cost, and then I want a fee for handling this project. So called a cost plus. And these are also contract forms too. You'll have a lump sum contract form and a cost plus contract form. Rarely does a client ever come up to you and say, look, just get started, send me an invoice. Whatever it takes, whatever it is, I'll pay. You might get into one of those once in a while, maybe in an emergency situation. Pretty rare. Almost everybody wants to know what something's going to cost before you get going and want an estimate and want to be able to know where you're headed for and try to contain the cost. Got to look at it from the client's side. And you got to understand that your client is paramount. There's your suppliers you're buying from, your workers, your subcontractors, yourself, your own staff, your supervision, whatever, all important. But none of this happens if you don't have a client. You have to have a client, somebody who wants to build something and has the money to do it. If you don't have that, you don't have a business. You don't have a company. You don't have anything. So you got to put your clients first and foremost. That's what you're here for, and that's how you make your living, is by having clients and doing what the clients need. So rarely will the client just come up and say, just get started and send me the bill. There's another version called a T&M, time and material. It's a little cross between the cost plus sort of. Most of time and materials, they'll say, okay, I'll pay, all the material cost, and then you invoice me for your time as you go. You may not know what that time is. You're going to be there for a week or a month. Most of those, though, they're going to want a cap on it. They're going to say, okay, I have $10,000 and we'll get started here. You can't really estimate this because it's complicated. So we'll cap it at $10,000. Let's get started on a time and material basis. You turn in every day or every week the material and how much time you spent, and I'll pay it. And we get up to 10,000. We're going to sit and reevaluate, or we're going to stop because I'm out of money. So there's different kind of ways of looking at estimating. But the bottom line is this is very important. You have to know it. So when you're going to estimate something or bid something, called bid, it's your first system. You're going to hear me talk a lot in these podcasts about systems. Have a system. Don't know what system is the best in any particular instance or circumstance or project, but have some kind of system. And this is one of your first systems. And this is one of the most important. You have to have a system of estimating. How do you go about coming up with these prices because you're going to be held to them. A lot of them are going to go into contracts, and you're going to be bound by this price, uh, and you're not going to have a second bite of the apple. You're not going to have another chance to redo it. So again, it can make you or break you. So the first thing, you've got to review the project. I wouldn't recommend anybody pricing anything you haven't seen. There's so much goes into it. It's kind of like you buying something you haven't seen, right? It shows up, you go, wait a minute, this is what I thought it was. It can be the same way in estimating. You've got to go see the project. Got to get the lay of the land, how you're going to get to it, how are men and material going to get to the project, how you're going to lay things down, where's your store, where you're going to park cars, workers come in cars, how you're going to get machines in and out, concrete trucks, just all of the logistics of building the project. When you get onto a bigger project, that's kind of where you want to sit down and actually lay all that out on a site plan. You want to do what's called a site utilization plan. You want to figure out how you're going to utilize this site to get this thing built. And you've got to see the start to the end. You've got to understand the whole aspect of the project and build it in your head, build it in your mind, see it, imagine it, starting, in the middle of it, finishing, how it's all going to go. The better you can do that, the more experience you're at doing that, the better your estimates will be, because you'll understand the whole project super nuts. So, but you got to start by going and reviewing the project. You got to go on site and see it, ask questions, don't assume anything. One of the biggest problems is you're going to do something on a building and you don't get on the roof. You don't realize there's problems up there. Out of sight, out of mind is a very common thing. Nobody goes up on the roof, and you might get somebody saying, well, you said you would complete this whole project and my roof leaks. And you might say, well, I wasn't doing anything on the roof. Well, you didn't tell me that. So you told me you were going to come do all this project and the roof leaks. The air conditioners on the roof don't work. So don't assume anything. You got to see it. I would never recommend taking somebody else's advice or input unless you really, really know them and trust them. Somebody you work with together. So my recommendation is you see it with your own eyes, or you don't trust it, and be careful pricing it. If you haven't seen it all with your own eyes, you want to see it yourself. Second thing is documents. What kind of documents do you have? Documents are all over the place. You might do projects off of a verbal description. Somebody might walk you through their project, and you're taking notes and taking photographs, and I recommend taking photographs. Photographs will help in a lot of things. You'll be back estimating. You might not be able to get back out to the site. If you have a photograph, you can go back and look, oh yeah, that's what kind of flooring was there. That's what was on that wall. There's the lights that I've got to remove to remodel this thing. Or the site, where's the fire hydrants, where I'm going to need water, where am I getting a temp electric from, do I need a generator? A lot of stuff. If you have photos, you may not have to go back out to the site to see things. But if you don't see it and you don't have a photo of it, go back, because you need to see and understand everything. So some person may take you in an office you're going to remodel and just start talking, or a house you're going to remodel the kitchen or the bathroom. You're just making notes and taking pictures, and that's your documents. So all the way up to a full-on set that's been prepared by a licensed architectural or engineering firm, and it's been submitted to a city and permitted. If you're bidding private work, you can be all over the place. If you're bidding public works, anything that's coming for a city or a county or whatever, a state, that's considered public works, and they should have a full set of documents that they've already reviewed and they've actually permitted it themselves. So that document can be very detailed, but it can also be missing stuff. So the documents that you're going to get are very important. Got to look at them. You got to know how to read documents. That's something that comes with some experience. What all the symbols mean. A set of construction documents is big into symbols, just initials and stuff. And you got to know what those are. If you don't, ask somebody, find out what it is. Don't assume, well, 2, 3 initials mean something. Again, if you don't know what it means, you don't know what it means. Find out. Don't assume anything. Don't make any assumptions. Find out what they're talking about, what the products are, and that kind of stuff. Once you've reviewed the project, you have the documents, and you've reviewed those, and you feel pretty comfortable, you're going to start putting numbers to things. There's parts to it, and a lot of experience starts coming in now. How much experience you have doing this. There's some parts are pretty easy. you can count how many windows and how many doors. And if they're specified or you know what it is, you can go down and get a hold of a supplier. And you can get prices for things. That's the fairly easy part, is to count the products, count the square footage. I would be very careful using what they call unit pricing, like saying, I'll do this floor for so many dollars a square foot. I'll stucco the wall for so many dollars a yard. I'll put the carpet down for so many dollars a yard. I'll frame for so many dollars a square foot. I'll pour this concrete slab for so many dollars a square foot. Unless you've done it a lot and really know those unit costs, you'll get there eventually. You'll get where you'll be able to spit out unit costs for products. But until that happens, you really need to make sure, again, you understand what you're putting the price down to. And I would shy away from unit pricing things and ballparking things until you've really got experience and knowledge on how to do this. The key to estimating, the hardest thing to do, is to figure how long, how much labor, how long, how many people, and how long is it going to take them to get something done. That's an art. You need to have knowledge, experience. You can kind of, if you don't understand something, you can sit down and maybe think it through in your mind. Okay, I think I'm going to be in this room with 3 guys doing this for this long, or it's going to take this long to get this stuff. That's where the rubber meets the road when it comes to estimating. Do you know how to estimate the labor part of it, the supervision part of it? If you're going to have a supervisor, how many weeks or months you're going to need a supervisor on this job? So those are the things that come the hardest to a small contractor getting started. Hardly anything you can do, but just do it. Make sure you're covered. You may not get a couple projects. You might price yourself over somebody else. Somebody else might be sharper at it, more experienced, come in more leaner and understand it more. And you're maybe guesstimating a little bit and padding things, and that can be a problem because you may not get the projects. There's those 2 major things, though, is the products, the materials, and then the labor. But there's a third part of it. There's something we call in the industry general conditions. That's all the stuff that you have to do to build a project, but you don't necessarily buy a product or supply a product, install a product for your client. That is what? Portalets, the porta potties for the men. Out here in California, it's code. You have to have portalets. They can't go off in the bushes and they can't go into somebody else's bathroom. You may have to have temp fences. You may have to have fire extinguishers there in case you're worried about a fire. You may have to have a lift, a hoist, a backhoe, a forklift, something to offload things. You may have to have storage bins. You may have to have a job trailer that you want to sit in yourself or your superintendent to stay out of the weather. All these things are called general conditions. They're not a product and they're not the labor to do the job, but if you don't have them, you can't do the job. There's supervision. You got to figure how long, how many supervisors you need. You have a superintendent. You have assistant superintendent. You have a foreman. What do you have to manage all the workers, the subcontractors, and so on and so forth. How many things you're going to help the owner with when they start delivering their stuff, their furnitures or whatever they're going to do. Are you going to be involved in that? You have to discuss all that. Then you got to come down to a fee, how much money you want to make on top of all this. And that's an art to that too. How much fee to charge? There's generally done in percentages. I'm going to do this plus 5%. I'm going to do this plus 10%. I'm going to do this plus 15%. So that's something that you got to learn to get a feel for, to give yourself a proper fee so you can make money. Back to the estimating, the actual system, the programs. Technology is just going crazy, as we all know. You can buy something this month and this year, and by next month, next year, it's obsolete. So staying on top of that's really hard. You can do it old-fashioned, just get a pen and a pad out. I recommend that you list every single item that you can. Break it down to the minute, smallest thing, not nails and paintbrushes and that kind of stuff. But for sure, separate paint from the drywall, separate framing, sheathing from the roofing, separate the windows from the sliders, from enclosures around a shower. Separate things as much as you can. Air conditioning from exhaust fans, and have all this stuff broken down as much as you can. You can do this, you can make your own forms. I have some here. You just make a form, This has got several pages to this one. Several pages. You can see how much things are broken down. A lot of definition, a lot of breakdown. That's a very long one. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here. Here's a shorter version of the same thing. Again, you just list a category, give yourself some description, and put your dollar amounts there that you estimated. That's the thing you're going to be handed to your client. There's different ways. The shorter version is just kind of, well, what category do you want to put things, what order do you want to put the different categories? You separated plumbing from electrical from painting, and what order you have them. This version is what's called a division format. The reason it's a lot longer is the way back in the day, they used to have spec books. When you got a set of plans, you got a spec book with it. And those spec books had 16 divisions, from Division 1 to Division 16. Division 16 was always electric. Division 1 was always the general conditions I talked about, and so on and so forth. If you want to break something down by division, some people, you may have a construction manager that the client's hired that knows construction. They may want it in this division format. So you have to learn what's the division format. So just in summary, trying to keep these podcasts to 15 minutes. It's the heart of the business. It's a lot to it. Like I said, this podcast ends up becoming more known and out there, and we can get interactive. I'd like to be able to have people ask questions, and we can get more specific in the minutia. But the estimating is the key to the thing. And if you're going to be a small contractor in a small town, it's something you've really got to learn how to do very well. Thank you. We'll have the next podcast coming soon.